Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to day three of our 1 week long faculty development program titled Harnessing AI Tools for Teaching. Before beginning with the discussion for today, just a quick recap of what we have looked at yesterday. Yesterday, we saw two very important mm, tools for getting started with the process of generation of various types of resources and planning with the tool titled heuristic. And at the end of the discussion, we saw how we could create mind maps, quizzes, flashcards, etc. after visualizing the map. And post that, we ended our session on a small but brief demo of Google Gemini's storybook feature, which allows us to create visual picture books for topics, which can be then further adapted for various forms of activities and exercises. Here, we are going to transition into Gemini as our next tool for today. That's going to be our first tool that we look at. And we're not going to be using Gemini as a bot directly. And what we're rather going to be doing is we're going to see how Gemini has been integrated very effectively in a tool that has been around for quite some time. And many of us may have already used it before. I am talking about my screen will be coming up in just a second. I'm sharing my screen. So I hope my screen is visible, and I'm talking about Google Classroom. This is something which has been around for some time now, and we have recently seen, and this is something which is very useful as to what Gemini has done, is they've integrated Gemini in the classroom itself, right? Now, there is one very important point to take a note of here before we go ahead with the demonstration for today, is that the present version of Gemini, which I am going to be showing, would be accessible inside Google Classroom if we are using a classroom from an institutional account. So for example, this is my personal account, which this is a normal personal Gmail account, which I'm using Classroom with right now. You can see there is no option of Gemini here. Whereas if I transition to the email account with an institutional email ID, we notice that there is a new tab here which they've added, which is called as Gemini. So I'll repeat before going ahead. In order to access this platform, this is completely free. There is no premium version to this. We just need to log in into Google Classroom using our institutional IDs. And once we do that, we would be able to see this Gemini feature, which we can open up, and we notice that at the top here, it says Google AI Suite or Google AI Tool Suite for Toolkit for Educators. And we're going to be spending a majority of our time discussing all the elements or options that are given in this particular suite, because as we can see, there are multiple elements that are available here, and there are quite a lot of things that we can do with this as we go ahead, right? So this is just one very important point which I wanted to mention. Now, once we come to Gemini, we can see that the suite or the ability to generate content and resources has been divided into 5 major subheadings or 5 major steps or areas which are important for an educator, right from planning to creation of instructional material, assessments, student support, and administrative tasks, right? So we're going to be looking at all of them, majority of them one by one as we go ahead. So let's go to planning first. Now in planning, and if we want to see all of them together, they would be available under the All tab right here. So this gives us a list of the complete set of tools. Now, when we come to planning, we immediately start to notice that there are some really very important options that we have, which might be very useful for a day-to-day basis in terms of various aspects of creation of, let's say, a plan of a lesson for a topic, rubric assessments, etc. Before we go to that, another very important thing that we have to take a note of is this, that for each of these categories that we see right here, we notice that there are two kinds of options that we have available with us. Now, what I mean by this is, if you notice here, some of them have this icon or this diamond shaped symbol, which is available in the left panel of the option, whereas some of the others don't have this. Now, this is a very important distinction to understand in terms of how we use these tools. Because what will happen is, if I click on any of these ones, the ones that have this symbol on the left, it will directly take me to Gemini, because we notice that Gemini also has the same symbol right here. Its logo that we have is the same, as we can see on the left panel here. So we will be redirected to a Gemini portal, and there the prompt would be pre-created for us. So we are going to try that. Whereas the others that we see here, which do not have this logo or the symbol here, those tools can be used within the classroom itself, which means that it does not transition over to Gemini or redirect us to Gemini for the output that it generates. Now, let's start off with something simple. The first one is called as draft a class syllabi or syllabus or a curriculum. So we'll go with that first. Now, when I click on this, it says, see, this is the option that we will get. The open in Gemini app will open in a new tab. And when I click on open, it will automatically redirect me to the same platform. Let me just switch over the account because that will be better. All right. Now we go to planning, draft the class syllabus, and we will be brought to the Gemini portal here. And as we notice that the prompt, which is very detailed, is already created for us. We don't have to write a prompt. And this prompt is specifically customized and designed according to the task that we have selected. In this case, being the creation of a syllabus. Now, let's see this prompt in detail. I'll just copy paste this prompt in a blank document. See how detailed the prompt is. We'll try to examine it slightly. The first category or the first part of the prompt defines the role and the task for the Gemini bot, where we can see what it's saying. It says you are an expert teacher, communicator, and curriculum creator. Your task is to help me create a syllabus to communicate learning journey, expectations, policies, etc. You will guide me through the process by explaining the collaborative approach and immediately ask the essential details needed to begin drafting the syllabus. Then the process has been defined, which we can read through in detail. And it basically, if you read through this, it is outlining the plan or the map that Gemini has to follow, starting from asking the user, that is me in this case, for the input as to what topic or area do we want the syllabus to be created for, and then going further from there, gain some insight and context and establish a framework there. So as we can see, it has started to respond to this. It's based on this prompt. It says, I will ask you some questions to be sure we tailor the syllabus to your school's class and style. To start, can you tell me a little bit about your goal with the syllabus? For example, is it primarily for students, families, etc.? So here now we can write whatever we want to write in terms of if we want to define the subject area, the target audience, the learning level of the audience, our expectations, etc. So let's go ahead. The syllabus is for a course on business communication for MBA students of first year. The syllabus has to be designed in such a manner that it addresses the present need of the learner in the context of soft skills and organizational communication. So this is my first prompt. Now it will go through this, it will understand it, and we can see that it says it has started moving towards drafting the next phase of this prompt, that is the next part here, which is how it is supposed to work, wherein it will get out the context now, outline the key sections, and then it is asking me to suggest a structure for the same. So what key policies or sections do you want to include? And then it is giving me an example. For example, most syllabi would include the following. We can define this if you want to. So let's say, for example, I can say include course objectives, course outcomes. Well, let's do that for that matter. Include COs, POs, ESOs, grading policy, course overview in 4 units, suggested assignments, and resources. So now that we have answered this second question, what it should do now from here is that it would start refining with the final structure of the same, where we can see that it is asking about common structures, and it is giving me this these titles for the unit, and based on the titles that I give, it will generate content accordingly. This is fine. Go ahead with syllabus creation. So now it will go through the final steps of understanding this complete framework and give me some additional questions on grading policy, which I'm just going to say, go ahead. We can define this if we want to based on our requirement and the policy that we follow in our course or in our institute, etc. And now we are beginning with the syllabus creation draft. It was asking me for one final time whether I want to make some additional changes, some additional outlines that I want to add, etc. And we can see what is happening. We can now see the output right here, course syllabus. Certain elements have been left blank, which we can change, add or change on our own. For example, course code, instructor name, office hours, program, etc. We have a course overview coming up, followed by course outcomes, a set of program outcomes, where it also leaves a space for institution-specific POs and PSOs if required. It has given us some indicative list of both of them. Then a unit-wise distribution of some key topics, a grading policy, which I can also separately export to Google Sheets if I want to in the form of an Excel format. Some suggested assignments, unit-wise also. Some suggested resources in terms of the names of the works or the books that we can go ahead with. This is a robust framework to get us, help us get started. How does this look to you? And you can then further go ahead from here. And it also suggests some further modifications which we can do, like add a detailed weekly schedule within the 4 units, a more detailed, let's say, attendance or participation policy, etc. Now, of course, I can simply double check this response. I can listen to this if I want to from here, or I can share and export this from this share button. A draft in Gmail will automatically take it to Gmail. If I click on export to docs, it will create a doc version of the same. I won't do this for all the outputs, because one thing we have to take care of is that whatever output we generate in terms of docs or Excel or etc., it all gets added onto the Google Drive of the particular account that we are using. So we have to be, we should only do this as and when we are absolutely sure about the final output that we want to go ahead with, or else we can download it separately by simply copy pasting it from here. The copy button is right here. I can paste it directly in a Google, in a Word file also if I want. That works just as well. And this is the doc version of the same, right? So this was the first one, which was draft the class syllabus. Do we have any questions so far, or are there any questions? I can pause for a second. I hope this much is clear. Otherwise, we'll go ahead with the next part portion. Okay. Now we noticed a change which I was talking about between the options with these logos of Gemini and the one that is not having that logo, which is the next part, which is outlining the lesson plan. Now, if I click on this one, we notice that we're not redirected to Gemini this time. Rather, we are brought within a new section of Google Classroom itself, wherein we are asked a set of a few questions which we have to answer. And then on the basis of that, it will create further output for us. Mostly, whichever options we select for the ones which where we are supposed to get an output in the Google Classroom itself, there will be typically three category of questions that we have to answer. Most important of them would be the target level audience or the target grade of our learners, the course objectives, that the objective of the option that we have selected, and finally, in case if we want to upload our own additional files, let's say I have, in this case, for example, there are some specific custom files, custom instructions, custom background information about the course which I want the Gemini to learn and then generate a lesson plan on the basis of that, then that's what can be done from upload from drive here. But that file has to be in the drive. It cannot be uploaded. It can then be uploaded further from device also, of course, by clicking on upload button from here. So let's go ahead without uploading anything. We'll just first give it the target grade. G MBA students. Then we have the template. We notice that with the lesson plan, it gives us two kinds of templates to generate a lesson plan from. One is the general template, which is a generalized version. And then there is something called as this one, which some of us may be aware of, which is a 5E lesson plan, which basically will divide the lesson plan into engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate, and give me the sections accordingly. So we'll keep it general. And finally, you have to describe the topic and the standard we want to teach and the knowledge or the skill that we want the students to demonstrate. So this is basically the description window where we put our prompt. So in case we are confused about this part, we notice that we can enter the topic, separate it by the comma, and set a set standard if I want to, a skill that I want to measure, and Bloom's taxonomy keywords can also be added here. We'll just give it the topic directly, for example. Introduction to public speaking theories, right? Now, once we have entered all the necessary information, what we do is we click on generate learning objectives. Now, this part is very crucial because the rest of the output that comes will completely be dependent on the learning objectives that we define. That is, the quality and the level of the content of the output that we notice will rely a lot on the objectives that we are trying to ascertain or achieve by entering them into this input window or this input box that we're getting right here. So we can review that each time, change it if we want to. I'm not going to do that right now. And it also says it right here. Always review and edit your learning objectives to be specific and relevant to your class. Then there is one additional information that we can give, which is optional. Describe your class, that is the size, the resources available, some learning needs that we have and interests.
Sir,
Yeah.
so these things we can also do using normal Google
Mm,
मीन्स क्रोमा जो गूगल हम लोग सर्च के लिए सर्च इंजन यूज करते हैं ना राइट we can type whatever information we want, we can speak it out, and we will get it. So what is the difference between this
this is
classroom
much more
method?
customized, and then this is much more advanced. You can simply compare the output that this is going to generate with a normal Google search engine output that you are talking about, and you will notice the quality of difference between the outputs of both. And
So
it will
while
also,
making the lesson plan,
hmm,
students learning objective, and then each chapter, how many hours we are giving, how many hours it's required, what is
hmm,
the output and all.
hmm.
So these all things step by step we have to do. while searching over here, यहाँ पे भी वही चीज दिखा रहा है. We are putting stepwise informations like learning objective, then introduction, then that, and we are getting the point, and simply then we are downloading. After getting the overall thing, we are downloading
Yeah,
or
of
simply
course.
copy paste
Yes.
to
Yes.
Word. So
Yeah.
that thing
Yeah.
also Google is doing now. What is the difference?
The difference is in the quality of the output. Gemini's education suite is specifically designed for academic outputs, whereas the Google search engine will give you slightly more generalized output, as if you notice. Whereas, as I'm saying, what you can do is compare both of them by keeping them side by side. You will notice that the quality of this would be slightly better and higher than what Google is giving you. Plus, it allows you to customize your information specific to any option that you want. That is something which a search engine will not allow you to do unless we are, operating it from the back end of it, which is the playground part of Gemini currently. So, and third thing, as far as it is separate in terms of specific options that we are having, many a times we only need to access one specific part instead of creating all of it together. If you want to do it together, that is also possible. For that, we just simply have to switch over to the platform. Instead of doing it here, we can do it with ChatGPT. It is possible. Depending on today or tomorrow, as we go ahead with the session, I'm going to demo that as well. Where with one single prompt, we can generate all of this also. It depends on what kind of output that we are trying to generate. Right?
That's what I want. Single prompt will get the
But then the
total
prompt will be
total
very
output.
larger. The prompt will be very larger.
That
Plus,
is the thing. Here I have seen you have put in very first while getting the introduction part. You have given 3 4 lines, 5 6 lines of informations, and then we are getting it.
correct, absolutely. Yes, there the prompt will be very larger if you're doing it with a chatbot, which you have to manually write. That part is being taken care of by this. That is another major point of differentiation. If I'm switching over to Gemini, which we just did with the creation of a syllabus, the detailed prompt that we saw here was auto-created by the platform. That was not something that we had to type, which I think I've deleted from here. Just a second. This one. So this
How
was
it could be auto created
we
means
just saw
whatever
it.
I.
Based the primary prompt was auto created. From there we gave it the further information of what topic we wanted, and this is the broader prompt in which it is operating.
This much I have seen, but here
Yes,
I have to do the modification, right? What I
absolutely,
want.
absolutely. But then when you are doing it with a chatbot, you have to
Hmm.
type this part also. That is something which Gemini is taking care of, where the outlining of the entire framework and context is being done from their end instead of us having to do it, right?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
So let's go ahead with the next part of this, which is describing the class size. The class size is 60 students with focus on learning by doing. So let's see. Now we'll notice the change in the differentiation of the format. So while Gemini was giving us output directly in Gemini itself, here we would be getting the output inside classroom also only. It will take a few seconds for generating the output on the basis of the learning objectives that we have. And this is, see, as we can see, this is the output right here. And this is what I was talking about in terms of the specificity, which the level of specification which Gemini brings as opposite to a chatbot, where we have to define each of these elements that we want to have. So these are the sections it has created apparently: lesson overview, materials needed, preparation required, common misconceptions, activities that we can do and how to conduct that activity also. The description also follows, and an assessment or an exit ticket as to how can this entire lesson be ended, and some further example responses. Now again, this can be exported or copied from here, and I can paste it in a Word file. Plus, we notice that with the same output right here itself, we can generate further outputs also just by clicking on them, which is if I want to find relevant video resources, for example, it will do that for this particular lesson plan itself. And if I click on generate a quiz, it will do that as well. So let's just give it a few seconds. There we go. These are the relevant video resources on the same topic. And if I go to generate a quiz option, it will switch over to another tab, which will come back to. And one very important thing to take a note of is this: anytime we generate this information, especially with those options where the output is coming within classroom only, right? Before we move ahead and select another option, or before we move ahead and start generating some other exercises or criteria that we were looking at, we have to save this somewhere, because while we are accessing those options where Gemini is there, the chat would be saved in the chat history of Gemini. That doesn't happen with Classroom. So in order for this to be saved, I have to either copy paste this somewhere, or I have to export it. Because at both the places, if we notice, there are options to regenerate this. In case I'm not satisfied with this draft, I can click on regenerate. In that case, what will happen is this section, which is regenerating, will go away. And in order for me to have this saved, I have to, as I said, either export it or copy paste it if that is something that I find important. And further modifications to this can be made using the prompt window right here, right? And these are some of the suggestive prompts. Again, this is something which the normal search engine will, not just towards, but not exactly give us, which is some additional prompts to get started with. And plus, we can give some real-time feedback also here, whether we like this draft or not. They will modify the further drafts according to this particular feedback that we are giving. Now, as it says, this is what I was talking about: discard changes. Changes will not be saved. Make sure you export to docs. So unless I do that, this particular draft goes away. And so these are the two first options, which is outlining of a lesson plan and creation of a class syllabus. We'll look at one more or two more maybe. This is creation of a rubric. Now this will generate specific rubrics for the exact assessment or task that we have given. Let's just define the target grade again. Performance levels can be 3, 4, or 5. This is basically the division of the assessment rubric between 3 levels, 4 levels, 5 levels. We'll keep it 5. Add assignment instructions. So in case I have an assignment instruction which is pre-existing, I can upload it from a drive, or I can type the assignment instruction here, or I can copy paste it if I have already typed it prior somewhere. So let's just type something here. The assessment consists of public speaking and presentation assignment, which is supposed to be done individually by each learner on a pre-assigned topic of their areas of interest. And this is where we have to describe the knowledge or the skill that we want the students to demonstrate. Let's say, for example, demonstrate the skills of English communication and public speaking with an emphasis on presentation elements also. So let me just quickly correct these errors, and we click on generate criteria. And from here, we will again get the next output, which is suggest the rubric criteria. So these are the 5 rubrics across which the assessment will take place. I can modify this if I want to. Once we have finalized that, we can simply click on generate rubric, and again, the output would be coming inside Gemini only, where I will have a rubric distribution coming up, as you can see, divided across 5 performance levels, ranging from strongly exceeding to far from approaching, with a description across 5 major segments. And some options, not all, for example, since this is a rubric, which means that it is supposed to go to an assessment. I can directly import it to the specific classroom that I have in the form of a sheet or a doc by selecting the classroom here for out of whichever classes I've created, and by selecting the category of what kind of material this classwork type is. This is something additional that this provides to us, which again we would have to import manually in case we were, working across cross-platform integration between various different chatbots. So in this manner, we can also create a unit plan. We can create a professional development plan. Uh, this one is good. This one allows us to have depth of knowledge open-ended questions. And again, we are switching over to Gemini. This one is supposed to generate 4 depth of knowledge questions, and the detailed prompt is already created. And it asks me a question about, tell me a little bit about how you plan to use these questions. Are they for in-class discussion or maybe an assignment? Let's just skip the whole part where it continuously asks us questions and directly see the output. That is also possible with this. Create DOK questions on the topic of role, not role, analysis of existentialism in the works of the author Franz Kafka. Directly give the questions. Don't ask follow-up input. So with this prompt, hopefully, it will not ask us any further follow-up questions that it would normally do, as it says, addressing the override. And that part has been now bypassed. Otherwise, it will ask few more questions for us to go through, and this is where we have the BOK questions coming up. Then it gives us further suggestions as to what it can do more from here. So these are some of the elements in the planning tab. With instructional material, we can do a lot more. As we can see, there are project ideas it can generate. It can generate quizzes. Let's try generating a quiz first. So let's say our target grade is UG students of English literature. Number of questions 20. Okay, maximum number it gives in this one is 15. So we'll go with 15. Describe the topic and knowledge or skills you want the students to demonstrate. Analysis of the play The Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Now, again, the same process follows. Here, we have to generate the learning objectives, and once that is done, then we have to select what kind of questions do we want. So we have selected all 4 categories, and since there are 15 questions, it will divide it accordingly. I'll click on generate questions now, and we should be getting our quiz right here itself within Gemini and within Classroom. And the correct answer is given below that itself. And we can see the distribution of questions according to the category that we have selected. And again, same thing, I can modify this, I can change the text, I can export it, that all remains the same. So this one generates the quiz for us. And rubric is something you've seen earlier. The next important one, which we can look at is, yeah, brainstorm project ideas. Target grade, let's change this a little bit. Each students of philosophy. Let's say the topic of project submission is to analyze the role of philosophy in the present context of humanities and social sciences. Same process, we click on the generation of learning objectives again, and Here we get one additional element apart from learning objectives, which is this supposed to be a group project or an individual project? If I select individual work, and any further suggestions which are optional, which you can enter here. The project is supposed to measure the role of students' understandings of the application, or rather, let's say, applicative nature of the concepts of philosophy. And again, the process remains the same. We click on generating the final draft of the project outcome, and we should be getting an output immediately in the next few seconds. And this is the project overview. This is quite detailed, as we can see. Uh, Here, the project overview is given for the teachers, and if this further gives us all the necessary information about how the project is supposed to be implemented from both the learners and the instructors' point of view. What are the materials that are required? And these are the detailed instructions for students as to how they are supposed to carry out this project, what they're supposed to be doing, and how are they supposed to submit the said final outcome of the project. Again, in a way, this is an assessment. So those assessments can be added to the classroom by selecting the same options from here. So these are some of the things that we can do from the instructional material part. We can develop comprehensive reading questions. We can brainstorm some ideas, create some activities, etc. Assessments are basically slightly overlapping with instructional material, where you have specifically only assessments. We'll try this one, build a choice board. We'll simply just say UG students of humanities, and let's just say that the topic that we have is professional ethics, and we'll generate the learning objectives again, and click on generate finally, and we should be getting a choice board also coming up for our reference right here. So let's just give it a few seconds. There we go. Uh, Out of this, we can select which kind of activities would we want students to give a choice of in terms of what they would like to carry out in the class. And this can be again uploaded to Classroom also, and from there they can pick and choose what they would like to further do as per their areas of interest. So this is another form of assessment that we can carry out. And the support student basically allows us to do two things: change the reading level of a text, make it more simpler. I can add the text content here, which, and the word limit of this is pretty generous, up to 9,000 characters. And any keywords that we want to keep in the final version can be entered here, and the target grade can be set, and it will accordingly make the reading material more simpler for the students if you wanted that to be done. And this one translates the text for us. And this section is, I think, something which they can still work a bit better on, because for now we just have very few options here, right? Like creating a professional development plan, or sort of getting some ideas on field trip brainstorming, or drafting of some basic formats of a newsletter. So this is what the Gemini portal does in terms of trying to create various options for us. And let's say I want to do all of this together. All I have to do is switch over to my next platform. Now, this can be done in Gemini also if you're using Gemini, and if that is something we prefer, depends upon our preference. And let me see if I have that. I don't think I have it here. Just in case I have any prompt, I can show that. Yeah, I think this is the one. So this is what the detailed prompt would look like. I'll just copy paste this prompt. This is something we demoed. I think I demoed in one of my other earlier sessions. I'm going to a new chat. Now, let's see the prompt for a minute. Create a 4-unit course on the course of business communication for postgraduate students of MBA programs. This is similar to the basic information that I entered in Gemini with COs, POs, and PSOs, along with their mapping in a specific tabular format in the 3-point scale. Let's change this to actually 4. in a tabular format. In fact, let's remove the scale itself with a cross mark. Also add suggestive assessments and rubrics for each assessment based on the revised Bloom's taxonomy. After this, also create a set of important additional resources like YouTube videos, podcasts, PDF, blogs, case studies, etc., along with the web links. After that, give me a detailed set of unit-wise sample descriptive questions for a question bank. So I have integrated that also here, that after the syllabi, a question bank should come up, which are divided into further two categories, namely close-ended questions and open-ended questions. Let me add one other element here with answers in bullet points. Finally, also at the end of the course, suggest some major thrust areas for further research and discussion. And I have given it some additional context to work with. Refer the web. So this is something I'm asking it to do for similar courses on the topic, which it can study and learn from. I'm also saying don't copy paste any ideas from there. Just use those syllabuses on the web for a reference and learning purposes. Also refer to the specific model UC LOCF curriculum and give me finally at the end of it, in case so that I can view the results which it has gone through, give me a list of websites you visited at the end for the under the title references. And we run this prompt and it will do the same thing in case we want it all together here. But of course, we can then compare and contrast the quality of both this in Classroom and the Gemini. We can see which one works best. So there we go. The course title, description, COs, POs, PSOs, with the mapping coming up right here. Blank means no direct mapping. Course structure in 4 units. Suggestive assessments that will follow. A final assessment as to what can be there. Some additional YouTube video. I think since I did not turn on the browse the web feature from here, it is not giving me the link. In case I had done that, it would give that also. Some podcasts. This time it has given the link. Some PDF or blog articles. Some case studies that we can go through. Some sample descriptive questions with a bullet point on the indicative what the answer should consist of, unit-wise again. And some major thrust areas for further discussion, and all the references it has gone through. And then it says, if you want, I can generate a full slide PPT file content and detailed reading list or Excel sheet. So I can download this in whichever format I want to. Or else I can simply click on share and I can share this chat in the form of a web link also. So this is if I want to do the same thing in a in a more singular version by giving a single prompt. But then, as I said, the prompt would have to be created and written in this longer context, and we can decide which one best works best for us. One final thing, let me download the above in a Word file. So of course, it will directly start running the Python script, and all of this output which it has given to me, it will let me download the same in the form of a Word file as well. There will be a web link that will come up. It will take some time because the output is pretty long, so it will take a few seconds. And it is auto writing the code for that, and then post that, it will let me download the entire output that we just now saw in the output version of the chat in the form of a doc file. This is the file right here. It should be getting downloaded just in a second. Yeah, there we go. And this is what it looks like. So an entire document can be created like this. Some formatting errors will occur here, especially if it's a table. And then I would have to just maybe do this, supposedly. Yeah. I can delete these additional cells from here. And the mapping table is also there. And the rest of it follows. So this is one functionality of what Gemini would allow us to do as separate options depending on our preference, what we can do with a chatbot as well. So I think we're exactly on time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I can right away see some questions. I think I mentioned this in the beginning. This Gemini option will be available in Classroom if you are accessing the Google Classroom with your institutional email ID. It will not be available in the